Hello! Today in the polytunnel I'm making some pea supports. I put some peas in modules a week or so ago, and when they're a bit bigger I'll be planting them in the ground here. And also I want to plant some peas directly, so I'm going to have a bit of a succession going on here. But peas need support. Of all the legumes, they have tendrils that kind of come out and they try and grab hold of whatever's close by actually. So today I'm using raspberry canes. The autumn fruiting raspberries are best pruned early spring. So I took the opportunity to prune some of my raspberries and I'm using the canes as a support. As you can see, I'm starting to make a wigwam here. Well, not a wigwam actually, more a trellis. And I'm just popping them in kind of every 6 inches, and I'll be planting around the base. Pea plants can get quite heavy when they're full of fruit, so it's important to get these trellises or wigwams or whatever you use to hold them or to support them, to get them in nice and firm, and hopefully this will work. I haven't actually used this method in the polytunnel before. Last year I used sticks outside, so hopefully this will work. Down the bottom there I planted broad beans last week directly into the soil. I'll have my peas here, and then I'm planning up this corner to have some dwarf French beans. Last year I had tomatoes in this bed, and I'm moving the tomatoes over here this year to give them some fresh soil. So this year my legumes are here. So as you can see, I'm just popping a cane in, and you can use any. I would have used maybe bamboo canes if I didn't have access to these raspberry canes in the past. It's important to start them off quite low down, because from a very young age the peas are looking for support. So I'm just going to thread this along, and I'm not going to worry about chopping off any of the bits of twig or branch that are coming out, because they'll all help the peas, give them a bit extra support, something else to cling to. I'm just doing this one row in the polytunnel. I'm going to be planting more peas outside when the weather warms up. So for the moment this is just to give me a starter crop. And at the front I'll be planting some salads, maybe some chard and beetroot that I started in modules the other week. And I'll just have a few different crops at the front here. Peas need pollinators, so important to keep the polytunnel door open. And I also like to plant flowers that will attract bees into the polytunnel for that purpose. So marigolds or tagetes, calendula, borage would be firm favourites. I also have a green manure for celia that I'll sprinkle a few seeds in here. The bees, it's like champagne for bees. I'm just weaving this in and out. If you don't have this many sticks or twigs to hand, you can also use string. So I think last year I had a real shortage of bamboo canes, so I just used some upright canes, and then I created the wigwam, the trellis effect using string or twine. It's very warm in the tunnel. We had a frost last night, but right now it's quite warm. But I will be keeping an eye on the temperatures once I've planted the peas, because they would still be a bit susceptible to the cold temperatures. And if I have little seedlings coming up, I'll be covering them with fleece, just until they're bigger and more able for the cold. And there you can see the finished product. Very rustic, but it should do the job nicely. And the important thing, as my peas are growing, I'll be helping to wind them in there and thread them in, because otherwise the tendency will be for them to flop forwards. So I'll have to keep an eye and just make sure that they do manage to find their way in there. And you can save this. So I will hope that I'll be able to save these at the end of the season. I'll make sure I leave some pods on here and just pop them out and dry them, and I'll have them for next year. I'm going to plant them every about 5 centimetres apart. Now slugs absolutely love peas and pea shoots. I have got some slug traps, so I will be arming them with some beer, and I'll also be checking them regularly. Something else I've done in the past as well is to have a row of marigolds in front, or tagetes, because the slugs seem to like the marigolds even more than they like the peas, so that I use the marigolds as a sacrificial plant. So I'm only going to plant half of this frame right now, and I'm going to leave the other half for the modules that I made the other day. As before, I will just put them in place and then I'll pop them down. And again, twice the diameter deep is just a regular rule of thumb. So I should just pop them down there. I watered this soil first. The soil in the polytunnel is very, very dry because it hasn't been watered for a long time. Mostly I'm trying to leave these beds open to give the weeds a chance to come up, which is why I've kept them uncovered. I've added manure, I've added the compost, and now I'm just leaving them uncovered and giving any seed bank, any weeds in the seed bank a chance to show their heads, so I can get them out before I do most of my sowing. And then I'll just pop that there. So that's it. I've a dozen or so plants in there. And the main thing now, as I say, I'll just keep an eye out for slugs. Mice are rather partial to peas as well. Touch wood, something I haven't had a problem with in the tunnel yet, but every year something new seems to happen, so we'll keep an eye out for mice. And then, yeah, that's it. We'll just keep an eye on everything and make sure it's weeded. And then wait. Hopefully I'll be picking peas here around May, June time. Gosh, it really is very warm in here. I need sunglasses. This is my slug trap, actually. Mr. G bought me this for Christmas last year. I think I have 4 of them. And it's quite handy. So it's a little green pot with a hole in the bottom. And then a solid pot that sits in. And then this sits on here, and then the lid pops on there to keep any rain out, and that's it. It definitely worked last year. The trick is keeping it topped up with beer, but that's not always a problem. It's important, if you are using slug traps, to make sure you don't bury them completely to the lid, to the top, because you don't want ground dwelling beetles and beneficial insects to fall in the trap. You only really want the slugs and snails in there. So just leave a centimetre or so at the top, just to give the chance for the beetles to scuttle past rather than to drop in there. You might also be wondering what the hose is that's in here. We have seepage hose, which is attached to a pipe which comes from a big tank at the back of the house that's collecting rainwater. At the moment, last year it was blocked. We needed to somehow figure out a filter, so it wasn't working. But hopefully this year, when it worked in the past, it was amazing. It just very gradually seeps moisture or rainwater out through it, and it just saves me having to worry about whether things are getting enough moisture at all, actually, because the only time we can get water in here is if we stand here with our hose or a watering can. But the seepage hose just gives a nice little amount of water and keeps the plants happy. that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Let me know how you're getting on with your own growing, and anything you'd like to share, please leave in the comments. I'll leave some notes down in the description below about organic matter and what that means, and a beginner's guide, if you like, of the different types that are available. But for now, see you next time.